Strategies for adding and subtracting fractions. So when we add and subtract negative fractions, we're using the same positive and negative rules we already know, and the same fractions rules we already know, and we're just going to mix them together. So step one, find a common denominator. After that, you're going to rewrite the fractions using that common denominator. And then in between there, you're going to use the rules for adding positives and negatives, which I've recapped here. If you have the same signs, add the values, keep the sign. If you have different signs, take the difference and then keep the sign of the larger value. And then you're going to keep the denominator and add the numerators, just like we did for these positive fractions. So I have 6/3 plus -1/6. I need a common denominator, which in this case would be 6. So I'm going to change this 6/3 so that it has a denominator of 6 by multiplying by 2/2. So that changes my first fraction to 12/6. And then my second fraction stays as -1/6. So now my strategy is to keep the denominators. So this is going to be a 6 in the denominator, and then use my rules of positives and negatives to add the numerator. So I've got 12 minus 1, which is 11. So this adds to 11/6. Now I've got denominators of 6 and 5. So if I want to find the common denominator, I have to think of the multiples of each of those. So 5s are listed up here in red, and then 6s I'll list in orange. Can I have a volunteer to tell me, please, the smallest number that 5 and 6 both go into? 30 is the correct answer, because 6 times 5 equals 30. So I'm going to multiply my first fraction by 5/5 and my second fraction by 6/6. And that changes my first fraction to 40/30ths and my second fraction to, it was negative, so don't forget to leave it as a negative number. It's going to be 54/30ths. So I've changed my whole expression to 40/30ths plus -54/30ths. Once it looks like this, I'm going to keep the same denominator of 30 and follow my addition rules for the numerators. So 40 plus -54. The answer is going to be negative, and then I'm thinking of subtracting them in the way that makes sense. So I'm doing 54 minus 40, which is fairly straightforward to do because it ends in a 0, and that's going to be 14. So that means this comes to -14/30ths. Now those are both even, right? So I can actually divide them both by 2 to simplify my fraction. So -14 divided by 2 is going to be -7, and 30 divided